Hello and welcome to another beautiful day here on Life and Whiskey. As always, I am Jordan, and today we're going to look at Larceny Kentucky Straight Bourbon. Okay, so Larceny, being that it is a straight bourbon with it is a NAS or a non-age statement whiskey. That means that it is a minimum of 4 years, and to get the straight bourbon designation, it has to be a minimum of 2 years. So to get the non-age statement part, it's 4. To get straight bourbon, it's 2. It's 92 proof or 46% ABV. That is what we're going to be discussing today on this program. We're going to look at the difference between ABV, alcohol by volume, and proof here in the United States. Larceny is produced by Heaven Hill and is distributed and bottled by Old Fitzgerald Distillery in Bardstown, Kentucky. And as the bottle says, the story behind this is that John E. Fitzgerald was the only treasurer agent to have the keys to the rick houses back in the day. And so he would go in there and siphon off the best barrels out of the rick house and keep them for himself. And so hence the name Larceny. Um, so that's kind of the background story on this. So here we go. We're going to pour us some of this, and we'll get into the tasting notes here, and then we'll get into our small discussion. Ooh, so right off the bat, right up front, heavy corn dust. Get some sweet vanilla caramel in there. A couple of spicy notes, but nothing over the top really. Just very, very sweet up front in the nose. Corn dust being the main smell that I'm pulling out of there. On the palate, I get corn dust absolutely dominating. It's the first thing I taste. It lingers the longest as other flavors kind of go and flow through. That corn dust kind of just stays on my tongue. I get corn dust, then moves into a vanilla and a caramel. All the while maintaining a sweet, and then kind of somewhere in the middle, you pick up this weird baking spice, nutmeggy kind of flavor. Not weird, it's just not something that I normally get. That's fairly present in here. You can kind of get a little bit of cinnamon out of it if you work at it, so that nutmeg, cinnamon, baking spice kind of area. So concentrating on the finish on this one. So you kind of move off those baking spice notes. You get into the sweet again. It's kind of mostly caramel that you pick up out of there, along with some dry oak and some oak tannin in there. Has a very long and light finish. So it's light on the oak, a little bit of pepper spice in there, maybe some barrel spice, but it's a really good whiskey, especially if you like a corn dust heavy or forward whiskey. Highly recommend this one. That's Larceny, and it's at 92 proof. Now, 92 proof, what's that mean and where's that come from? So, the term that we use with most alcohol is proof, and proof comes from back in the day, I think somewhere around the 1700s and thereabouts, when they actually proved the alcohol content of the whiskey by mixing, or alcohol I should say, mixing alcohol with black powder and then lighting it on fire. If you could maintain and keep a flame on it, then that liquor would then be considered proved. And so that's where the term proof comes from, is from proving the whiskey. Now today it is kind of an outdated concept. Some moonshiners and stuff will still prove their spirit by doing you've probably seen some YouTube videos about it. Put your alcohol or your spirit on a spoon, light it on fire. If you can maintain a blue flame, that means you're burning ethanol, which means you have a higher proof. But really, that term doesn't have as much weight today as far as what it actually means. And so what has a more stringent meaning is ABV, or alcohol by volume, and it's expressed as a percentage. And so here's a couple definitions. So proof in the United States is decided at 60 degrees Fahrenheit. It is double the percent alcohol by volume number. So as we said here, this Larceny is 92 proof, which means that it is 46% alcohol by volume. So take 46, multiply it by 2, you get 92 proof. Okay, alcohol by volume then is expressed as a percentage, and it's the percentage of alcohol volume of a solution at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, and so that is what you're going to find on the bottle. The most accurate way to represent this is to actually do it is when a distiller is figuring out their proof, they will take and weigh the spirit. And when you weigh a spirit, you can figure out the alcohol by weight at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and then multiply it by 0.079 to get your percent of alcohol by volume. Okay, so what is all that, so that's kind of figuring out the percentage of alcohol in any bottle of spirit that you're drinking. In our case, it's going to be in whiskey. And the legal definition of whiskey means that it cannot be lower than 40% or 80 proof. 80 proof. So it can't be lower than 40% alcohol by volume or 80 proof and still be labeled as whiskey. So there's a couple of things to kind of unpackage with proof or why it matters. So number one, the higher the proof or percent ABV, the more alcohol there is in any given volume, which means it takes less to get you drunk. That's the first thing you should know, because the alcohol is more concentrated. Also, the higher the proof, most likely the higher the burn you're going to feel in your mouth and your throat as that alcohol is going into your body. And the alcohol will actually kind of burn your tongue a little bit and tone down your ability to pick out flavors and stuff. So if you're drinking a higher proof whiskey, in time as you're drinking it, your ability to pick out nuances is going to lessen a little bit. But you do become acclimated to it as well. So the more you drink it, the easier it is for you to drink, the more accustomed you become to higher proof whiskeys. The other thing you want to kind of keep in mind is, when you're starting to think about budgets and what you can get based on ABV and proof. So most of your budget whiskeys, something under $15, in almost all cases that I can think of under $10, you're going to be in that 40%, 80 proof range. And largely that's because if you have a barrel of whiskey that you're taking, in order to maximize the amount of bottles that you can get out of that barrel, you're going to proof it down as low as possible. So let's say you got a barrel of whiskey, you put it into the barrel at 125 proof. Some evaporation happens, the volume in there, and that's your angel share, the volume in there reduces slightly and your alcohol volume increases slightly. And so when you pull it out of the barrel, it comes out at, say, 126 proof. So it went up 1 proof point. And now, in order to maximize the number of bottles that you get out of there, you take it and you cut it with water and you reduce it all the way down to 80 proof. Okay, that is how you get the most number of bottles out of a barrel. And as we discussed earlier, when I did the Buffalo Trace episode, the number one driver of price is rarity. So if you can get more bottles out of a barrel, that makes it less rare. Therefore, the price can be significantly lower. And with that, we kind of discussed earlier that price is not indicative of quality. You can get some really good whiskeys for cheap, and some of the lower proof ones, it's harder to do, but some low proof whiskeys can actually have really good flavor and nuance to them, but it's rare to find those. Um, but uh, typically, you can kind of base price using that rarity model and proof hand in hand, right? So the higher the proof, the less bottles per barrel you're going to get, the more rare it becomes just by sheer volume, right? So in your moderate range, then your moderate price range, that $20 to $40 price range, then maybe you're going to see stuff that's going to be 90 proof and above in most cases. And 90 is still kind of on the lower end. I would say that you could even bump that up to like 100, where you get your bottled and bonds um, type whiskeys, and then your single barrel whiskeys and your cask strength whiskeys. Those tend to be up higher. And as you keep your proof higher, the alcohol is really what's holding most of the flavor in a whiskey. Water does not hold the whiskey flavors coming from both the grains and the barrel very well. So typically the higher proof, the more nuance and flavor there is to get out of a bottle. Okay, so finally, when you get up to the higher price point, like above 35, 60, 70, $100, whatever, when you remove the most rare of rare stuff and you just get like a top shelf type whiskey in the 40 to $60 range, let's say. Let's just keep it right there. You're definitely going to be in the higher proofs most often. 95 and above proof is where you're going to be at. You're going to get more nuance. It's made for sipping and enjoying. The whole reason I'm doing this whiskey review channel is so that, we can take a whiskey and really pick out the nuances and the flavors that you get out of it and just kind of go through the whiskey experience. That's what I hope you guys are all doing while you're drinking your whiskey, is enjoying the experience that goes with it. I know not everybody's as big of a dork or nerd as I am and really gets excited by all that stuff, but hopefully you can start picking out some of those subtleties and flavor. And if you get a wide variety of proofs and brands and stuff, you can start seeing the differences and the similarities. The other really nice thing about a higher proof whiskey is that it allows you to add water to it in the manner that you want and the amount that you want. So if you really want to explore a whiskey, a good way to do it is, if you get a higher proof whiskey, you can take it and just little by little add a little bit of water at a time. And so add some water, let it sit for a couple of minutes, and then try it. And you'll see that the flavor of the whiskey changes quite dramatically for a lot of whiskeys out there. Not always, but most often it will. And then you can decide at what proof or how much water you think that particular product drinks the best. So when you're getting a bottle of whiskey, most often the proof that it is at, it's either one, really, really low because it's a budget option, or two, it's at that specific proof because that is where the distiller thought that whiskey tasted the best. So like this one, you'd go, okay, how did they come up with 92 proof? Well, they sat there they took it out of the cask. Let's say it came out at like 110, and then they slowly added water to it, bringing that proof down and tasting it little by little. And they said, yep, this is the flavor profile that we're looking for. And then that's where they bottle it. And so for this particular one, it happened to be at 92 proof. So you get to play distiller then if you get a high proof. So like if you buy a cask strength whiskey, that means they took it straight out of the barrel, dumped it into the bottle, and whatever proof that was at, that's what you're drinking. You can start there and play distiller and proof that down until you find where you really like that particular whiskey. So I encourage you to get out there, try it, check out different proofs. It is always amazing, especially this day and age when you have thousands and thousands of whiskeys to choose from, what big manufacturers are able to do versus what craft distillers are able to do when it comes to proof and flavor and just overall quality of whiskey. So don't be afraid to get out there, try it. Also, I'm not a man of means by any stretch of the imagination, and so what I mean by that is, I don't have a lot of disposable income, so I kind of slum it in the under $30 category of whiskey often, especially if it's something that's a go-to bottle of mine that I'm like, okay, on a daily basis, this is what I want to be drinking. I tend to get something from a category or from a brand or whatever that's on the budget-minded side of things. That being said, there's a lot of nuance to be found in some budget brands, and there's a lot of underrated brands out there. So go ahead, check out this channel for more. I'm actually going to do some reviews later on that are going to be focused in that budget category, and I'll give you some of my top picks in that area, and see what you think. Just don't be afraid to get out there and explore, especially in the budget stuff, because if you do come across a bottle and you're not really a fan of it, what are you out? 5, 10, 15, $20, whatever. It's not the end of the world. But on the other hand, you might find that diamond in the rough that is underrated by everybody and you really enjoy it. And because taste is subjective anyways, if it's something that you personally like, go all in on it, man. Enjoy the heck out of it. And if you can get it for a decent price, that just makes it even more enjoyable in my opinion. So I'm going to leave it there. Again, today's whiskey review, we looked at Larceny, and I hope you enjoyed the review and have a little bit better understanding of the difference between proof and percent alcohol by volume. And as always, please leave in the comments below what you are able to find Larceny for in your area and where your area is. If you have any other comments, please feel free to leave those below as well, and I'll try and address those. If you have any ideas about content you'd love to see, let me know. I will do my best to try and make a video to represent that. And yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next videos coming up.